On a quiet Thursday evening in the small town of Brookfield, 34-year-old Sarah Whitmore finished her nightly routine just like she had done hundreds of times before. Sarah was a creature of habit. She worked as a librarian at the local public library, lived alone in a small townhouse, and rarely stayed out late. At exactly 9:42 p.m., her neighbor across the hall saw her step outside briefly to take out a trash bag. They exchanged a polite wave. That was the last confirmed sighting of Sarah Whitmore, because sometime after she returned inside, she locked her door, and she was never seen again. Sarah wasn't the type of person people worried about. She had close friends, a steady job, and spoke to her older sister almost every evening on the phone. Her life was quiet, predictable, almost routine. Every morning she walked 2 blocks to a coffee shop before work. Every Sunday she called her parents. There were no dramatic breakups, no financial troubles, no obvious enemies, which made what happened next deeply unsettling. The first person to notice something was wrong was her co-worker, Daniel. Sarah never missed work. But on Monday morning, her desk was empty. Her phone went straight to voicemail. By Tuesday afternoon, Daniel contacted Sarah's sister, Claire. Claire drove 3 hours to Brookfield that evening. When she arrived at Sarah's townhouse, something immediately felt wrong. The porch light was still on. Sarah never left it on during the day. Claire knocked, and no answer. She called Sarah's phone again. Standing outside the door, she could hear it ringing inside. That's when she called the police. When officers arrived, they noticed something unusual immediately. The front door was locked from the inside. There were no signs of forced entry. After receiving permission from Claire, officers forced the door open. Inside, everything looked normal. The television remote sat neatly on the coffee table. A half-finished cup of tea rested beside it. Sarah's purse was hanging on the chair. Her keys were on the kitchen counter. Her phone was on the couch. But Sarah was gone, and struggled, and broken furniture, and blood. Nothing. It looked like she had simply vanished from her own living room. The locked door baffled investigators. If Sarah had left the apartment, she would have needed her keys. But the keys were still inside. If someone had taken her, how had they left with the door locked from within? The apartment had only 2 exits. The front door, and a small sliding window in the kitchen, barely wide enough for a child. Police searched the entire complex, and witnesses reported hearing screams, and cameras captured anyone leaving. It was as if Sarah had disappeared into thin air. Days passed with no progress. Then detectives discovered something small but strange that Sarah's computer browser history showed that, over the previous 2 weeks, she had been searching for apartment security systems and how to reinforce door locks. IT didn't fit her personality. Sarah had never been particularly fearful. Why had she suddenly become concerned about security? Then a second discovery changed the direction of the investigation. Sarah had called police 2 weeks before she vanished, but the report had been dismissed as minor. Detectives pulled the report. Sarah had told officers that someone had been knocking softly on her door late at night. When she looked through the peephole, no one was there to IT first. She assumed it was kids playing a prank. But the knocking kept happening, always after midnight. Always the same slow, deliberate pattern. Point 3 knocks. Pause. Point 2 knocks. Then silence. Police had checked the hallway cameras, and no one appeared. The case was closed. But now detectives wondered if that detail had been far more important than anyone realized. When investigators returned to the apartment complex, they noticed something they had overlooked before. The building had an old maintenance access corridor running behind the units, a narrow hallway used decades earlier for plumbing repairs. Most residents didn't even know it existed. Point 1 small access panel connected the corridor to Sarah's kitchen wall. When detectives opened it, they found fresh scratch marks on the inside. Someone had been using it recently. The corridor ran directly behind Sarah's apartment, and behind several others. Only one person in the building had regular access to the maintenance corridors. The building's longtime handyman, Mark Ellison. Mark had worked at the complex for almost 15 years. Residents trusted him. He fixed leaking sinks, replaced light bulbs, and often helped elderly tenants carry groceries upstairs. When detectives questioned him, he seemed cooperative, calm, friendly. But something about his answers felt rehearsed. Then police searched his maintenance workshop. Inside a locked cabinet, they discovered something chilling: the collection of small photographs, taken secretly, through windows, through door cracks, all different residents, including Sarah. Under interrogation, Mark eventually admitted the truth. For years, he had used the maintenance corridors to spy on tenants. He listened through walls, watched through hidden openings. He had become obsessed with Sarah on the night she disappeared. He entered through the maintenance panel. He had watched her lock the front door. He believed she was asleep. But when she walked into the kitchen and saw the open panel, everything changed. What happened next was not planned. But it ended with Sarah never leaving that apartment alive. Her remains were later discovered in a remote wooded area outside town. Brookfield never felt the same again. Residents who once felt safe in their homes began checking locks twice. Some moved away entirely. Claire struggled for years with one haunting thought. Sarah had done everything right. She locked her door. She reported the strange knocks. She trusted the place she called home. But sometimes danger doesn't come from outside. Sometimes it's already inside the walls.